If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better.
Funny. Good. Well, good deal. We're glad you're back home safe and sound. I'm kind of concerned about the weather because I know, did you see any snow coming back down?
No, it was,
No storm?
we had some snow while we were up there. We had
Right.
some snow and rain
Yeah.
while we were up there, as did Prescott, but when I got back, I noticed the ground was moist and soft, and so.
Good.
But
Okay, that's great.
my metal roof is keeping the
Oh, yeah.
water out of the house, so I
That's good. You did a good job, right?
must have, I hope.
Yeah, there you go. So I kind of gave a hint of what we were going to talk about today, and I wanted to come on early because I was thinking maybe I could get away a little early. So get away at 4:15, which is 3:15 your time. So gives us time to get to our dinner. So of course the Supreme Court made a decision on tariffs. I wanted to talk about that. I thought it was interesting that Jeff thought that Alito and Thomas would not vote in favor of President Trump, but they did. They were the two that them and Kavanaugh did. So I think that's pretty interesting. I wanted to talk about the State of the Union address, and if people got to watch it and what they thought of it. Yeah.
Let me grab some documents I had. While you're doing that, let me grab some documents I had about the
Good.
Supreme Court decision.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, great. And then, folks, we want to talk about the Convention of the States and information on how does it work? What is the goal? Where are we at with the Convention of States? We're talking about Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, which I can read to you now if you bear with me. Article 5, the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, which is 34 states, shall call for a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the Constitution, then ratified by the legislatures of the states 3/4, which would be 38, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof as proposed by Congress, provided that no amendment which may be prior to the year, I think it's 1808, shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. So here we're talking about 2/3 of the states calling for a convention of the states, and then if they came up with an amendment like a balanced budget amendment, it would take 3/4 of the states or 38 states to approve that. So if we went that route, so that's a little bit of background for everybody. So let's start, Ken, you and I, with the Supreme Court and the tariffs. And I guess I was a little disappointed, but I just thought it was really interesting that Alito and Thomas, I think, recognized the gravity of the situation, and I think they understood the emergency and what was going on. And I'm not sure. I remember back. You remember back during Obamacare where Roberts, when they called for I think it was a fine in Obamacare, right?
Yeah.
He interpreted that as a tax.
as a tax. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
he was
And so,
the key vote, wasn't he?
oh
He
yeah,
was the deciding vote that went
yeah,
5-4 to
yeah,
leave Obamacare
exactly.
in.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of uh, something on his part that was interesting. And go ahead, tell me your thoughts about the SCOTUS and the tariffs. And
Well, it caused me to go back and read the the United States codes that were controlling the presidential tariffs, and it's
yeah,
50 U.S. Code 1702 is the IEEPA international. I'm not sure I recall exactly what that stands for, but that was
IEPA.
the
Yeah,
IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act.
yeah,
That was from 1977, and that was the act that the president cited when he did the tariffs. And
right,
so, as I went back and kind of was reading that, um, it clearly gives. I mean, Congress uh, delegated their powers to the president
right,
in Section 1702, but it says at the times and to the extent specified in Section 1701. So you got to go to 1701, which I assume is what the court was focusing on. Any authority granted to the president by Section 1702 of this title may be exercised to deal with any unusual and extraordinary threat which has its source in whole or substantial part outside the United States to the national security, foreign policy, or economy of the United States if the president declares a national emergency with respect to such threat. So I'm assuming that the president said we are in a unusual and
yeah,
extraordinary
yeah.
situation.
He called it an economic emergency. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, and the more I've thought about this, I can't remember exactly how I might have characterized my position in our earlier broadcasts.
you were when we voted on. I had that sheet in front of me. You voted a 7 with an asterisk. I don't remember what the asterisk was. I think that was with you. They would say yes with conditions. I think that's what that meant.
Okay.
I
Yeah. What
voted.
was the question?
It was
It was 1 to 10. Would this likely happen or not? But what
yeah.
was the?
What will SCOTUS? Will they approve or deny the tariffs from 1 to 10? 10 would be a yes. 1 would be a no. So
So
you
10 would
voted
be a
7.
denial. 10 would deny the tariffs.
No, 10 would be approve.
Approve. So
Yeah, yeah. You were a
I thought
7.
they would approve the tariffs.
Yeah, with a star. I was a 7 with a star because I thought they would maybe provide some conditions. You know, they didn't even do that. They didn't even talk about paying the tariffs back. So they're all
And
stuck
that,
with a mess now.
yeah, it's a
Um,
mess now.
Paul voted a 6 and Jeff voted a 2, but Jeff was pretty sure that Alito and Thomas would vote against giving him the
Vote
powers,
against the tariffs, but they
which
were
was
ones that.
they voted for it.
Well, the
Yeah,
more I thought about it, the more I read these. Typically, courts will defer to the executive in the declaration of an emergency.
right,
And
right.
in this case, um, the 3 that you mentioned, let's see, it was Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh
Right.
that voted with the president. So it had to be Roberts and Barrett
Comey Barrett and Gorsuch.
and Gorsuch.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The two
did not
newest.
did
Right.
not give the benefit of the doubt to the president of saying that this was an emergency.
And
Now,
let me ask you a
I,
question. You've been to the Supreme Court, right?
I have sat right in the
Yeah.
front row.
And do you know if when they're after they take arguments and then they go into their whatever they go into, what do they really go into? Do they go in individually? Do they sit around all together in kibitz?
I don't
Do they
I
try to
don't know
convince
because
each other? I always wondered that.
yeah, I was actually the named defendant on behalf
Right.
of the state of
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah.
A lawsuit against the state of Arizona related to voter registrations
Right.
eventually made its way to the Supreme Court when I was the secretary. And so by that time, they had adjusted it was SOTS and SOTS versus State of Arizona, Secretary Bennett, and da 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 da
Yeah.
da.
So
So I
you were
was sitting
it.
right in the front row, and it was pretty cool to hear your name read by the court official.
Did you say
Versus
hi,
Bennett.
guys?
No, I didn't, but it felt pretty cool to be the named
Yeah.
defendant on behalf of the state of Arizona. But I don't know what they do. I assume they go back individually, but I also assume that depending on the preference of individuals, they might get into some smaller groups. I doubt that
Yeah.
they get back together, all 9 of them, and talk about it much.
Yeah.
But
Well, I was wondering, do they go back like does a younger justice go say, "Gee, I'd like to go hear the viewpoint of one of the older justices and what they,
I don't know.
what they know about precedent, right?" Because a
Yeah,
lot of times they'll bring precedent into any case, right?
yeah,
And then do they talk
yeah.
to each other about that? And does one try to convince the other, or vice versa? Or, did Roberts influence Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett in any
Yeah,
way?
yeah. I don't know.
Because I agree with you. I've always felt that he had the emergency powers, and that it's clear in IEEPA that he does, and I think Alito and Thomas were
It,
right.
it it
So
had to come it had to come down to whether those 3 justices that voted against the president's tariffs considered the condition that the country was in to
yeah,
be any unusual and extraordinary threat.
yeah,
Maybe they thought, no, the the things that he's pushing back, if these countries have been charging us 50% tariffs while we've been charging them 10% tariffs, if that's been going on for decades, then the fact that it's going on today is no longer unusual or extraordinary. But the more I've studied and read it, I think they got it wrong. I think the court should give quite a bit of deference to an executive. Now that can come back to bite you if an executive of the other party or a different opinion than yours is sitting in that chair. But I think it is an extraordinary threat
yeah, I do too.
when countries are abusing the United States, either economically or otherwise,
Yeah,
in the way they apply tariffs against us. And of course, I think the president would have to admit that he also used some of these tariffs to try to rectify political differences that he was having
yeah,
with some of these countries.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we're going to put 100% tariff on somebody until they come to the table and negotiate in good faith with us about ABC. But
yeah,
we were all wrong, and Jeff Uch got it right.
yeah. So
But
we
he had the justices wrong, though. He had the
yeah,
justices wrong.
yeah. You got the justice wrong, Jeff. So we give you a C plus.
That's right.
We uh, we started out with the Supreme Court and the tariff decision, and we're going to try to get into a little bit of time on the State of the Union speech, and then I'd like to talk about the Convention of the States a little bit. So,
Great. Well,
but Ken and I
sorry.
have voiced our opinion about the Supreme Court and the tariffs. So, Paul, you want to jump in there? Well, why don't we let Jeff jump in because he's only got about 30 minutes, right, Jeff?
I do. Yeah, I've got my
Yeah,
first turning point event tonight.
yeah.
And
So,
so I've got to get
so
ready for that. So
you
that'll
you
be
tell us
great.
what you thought about the decision, and then
Well,
we'll let Paul speak.
here's the
Looks like
first thing.
Zach's trying to come in.
I read, this is only the dissent.
Yeah,
Okay.
Wow.
There's 170 pages of ruling. I read every single word of every single judge on that. And I read the dissent first. And I wanted to read that so I could more carefully read the opinion and then the other opinions of the justices.
yeah,
And of course, Clarence Thomas is always good. And Kavanaugh, his was long and pretty good, but I have to give Judge Gorsuch, the Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch, really has risen in my eyes, to be honest, because um, the whole argument the whole time. But let me just mention this. I think both sides got it wrong because Justice Roberts said that the act in question gave no authority to the president to impose tariffs. The Internal Emergency Economic Powers Act, and you had Kavanaugh saying it gave the president all the powers. And I think very simply, you could say, hey, it's written in language that other presidents have used, not from exactly this act, but other acts have had that same language that they've used to impose tariff. Both Nixon did and Ford did, but they were with other acts, and it did not get tried all the way up to the Supreme Court. It was the lower court that justified those rulings, and it was not abused. And I do believe if President Trump would have been reasonable with his use of those, of that act, I don't think he would have been called on the carpet. And I do think it put the Supreme Court Chief Justice and other judges, other conservative judges, kind of like, hey, it's going to be hard to split the baby here and say some he could. And they just decided, look, we're going to say none. And in the end, it was absolutely the correct decision. And I can't think of another decision that I've disagreed with Clarence Thomas and Alito on, but this is one of them because if you go through all, look, I've got 12 pages of notes. I reported on James T. Harris on March 10th. I'm going to do a whole hour on this at my heirs meetings. But if you go through all the major questions doctrine, and other things on here, the legislative branch cannot delegate everything under the title of tariffs. And what Clarence Thomas said is the major questions doctrine does not necessarily apply to foreign affairs, and that the undelegate, the delegation doctrine, the non-delegation doctrine doesn't apply to foreign affairs. And I do agree that the executive president has more powers when it comes to that. But nowhere in no legislative act does it say that the president can do anything he wants. And he really shot himself in the foot when he starts talking about how he had a phone call with the Swiss prime minister and she didn't, have the right tone with him. And so he decided to up the tariffs. Or that Europe wasn't agreeing with Greenland in his once there and he ups the tariff. You can do that as a president, but you're going to get slapped down. And he rightfully so got slapped down. You are not, you do not have all encompassing legislative powers, nor should you. And Gorsuch at the end said, look, you may be upset at me now, but you're going to thank me later. And he is absolutely right. If a president had these powers, he or she could say, okay, we're going to slap tariffs on anybody importing gasoline cars of 800%, but electric cars 0, or whatever he or she wants to do. And so I'm happy for it. It was the right decision. There is a ton more I could say about it, but that will suffice.
So let me ask you a question. I asked Ken this. Ken has been in front of the Supreme Court as a defendant.
Very nice. I did not
for
know
the
that.
for the state of Arizona. But what we were talking about was, do the Supreme Court justices, when they hear the arguments, do they go back inside into their offices? Do they exchange information with each other? Do they talk about it each other? Do they try to convince someone of something else? Do the younger justices go to the older justices and ask them about precedents and answer questions that they might have? We don't know how that all works, but reason I ask that is, did Roberts have any influence over Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch in this decision?
Oh, I think they do. I think they do. I think they deliberate. I think they discuss. And it's obvious they read each other's opinions because they rip on each other. Look, the thing with Gorsuch is he ripped on everybody. he even ripped on those who agreed with him, because the liberal judges who sided with the majority, look, it's like looking at the conservative judges are like watching Michael Phelps swim compared to a middle school, new swimmer with the liberal judges and the way they write. And that's not meant to be disparaging, but they make no sense. And Gorsuch ripped on the liberal judges because he says, look, we're happy to have them side with us, but they're totally wrong and be why they're doing it. Because the only reason they're doing it is the liberal judges sided with Roberts on this because they're saying it did not say that the president in this act had all the authority to do tariffs, but they defended a position of a president to get those powers. So they totally rejected, they being the liberal judges, the major questions doctrine, because they were totally fine with the executive being able to wipe out student loan or using the executive to force vaccines down people's throats, or using the executive branch to alter contracts between landlord and tenant during COVID. And so, these liberal judges are,
All
on
over the
this
map.
case, they just happened to be correct, but it was a fallacy. They were correct on this judgment,
Yeah.
but they're doing it while not reining in future presidents.
Yeah, they stumbled into correctness.
They stumbled into it. Yes.
So, Paul, what do you think? To give us your opinion.
Well, I really don't have an opinion specifically on this case. My concern is the fact that the Supreme Court has liberal and conservative justices. That's the part that bothers me, because their job is supposed to be to interpret whether a law is constitutional or not. And if you can determine that a law is constitutional because it supports a liberal cause, but not a law because it doesn't support a liberal cause,
Correct.
They're screwing themselves or screwing us in that process, and that's the part that really bothers me. I don't know how we can have a Supreme Court that passes judgment on whether something is constitutional or not based on their prejudice.
And it loses credibility, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's the part that really bothers me. And what we have here is we got, and I appreciate that there was some Barrett, for instance, voted against the president's initiative there, but we keep getting these 5-4, 3-6 decisions, and so many of them are based on a prejudice based on whether the justice is a conservative or a liberal, and they're all supposed to be originalists. How many of them really go back to 1789 and say, this is what our founders meant when they wrote the law?
Yeah, I think the fallacy there is that we're confirming people, right, to the Supreme Court that shouldn't be on the Supreme Court. And of course, I'll point right away at this Jackson person who doesn't belong there. She really doesn't.
Well, none of the liberal judges believe in originalism, though. They all think the Constitution is outdated and should be interpreted according to the time. So, I mean, that's a problem.
So but it comes back. It really comes back to the confirmation of the justices that we have, and unfortunately, you can't dig. They spend all the time when in confirmation, they're trying to embarrass somebody like they did with Justice Thomas, and like Biden did with Justice Thomas in the confirmation. They just want to air all their dirty laundry rather than find out who this person really is and what they believe and if they'd be a good justice, right? They're not concerned about that. The Democrats vote, they don't want them on the court, our guys. And
Right.
our people are pretty lenient when it comes to justice. We had Republicans that voted to approve Jackson, and she should have never been approved. She should have been
Right.
rejected by Republicans. So we're too lenient, and they're too caught up in the politics. But
Well, it
yeah,
gets
okay.
worse. It gets a little worse because you got to remember when Bork was being, looked at as a
Bork.
Supreme Court
So
Bork.
he's being borked, right?
Yeah, well, what was going on is they were saying he was the original originalist, and that originalism was a modern construct. And you have, Harvard professors saying this, and all these people who don't know anything. And of course, John Marshall, the fourth Supreme Court justice, and Judge Story, all talked about originalism being the primary thing they use to judge cases. And so, but they try to rewrite history just like they try to rewrite the founding, making America look bad, and that's how they tried to make these original judges look bad, which is
Yeah.
all ridiculous.
So Zach, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can't see you. We can't see you. We hear you.
Well, Zoom is mad at me. They've got you in a screen about 3/4 of an inch by an inch and a half. I've got good volume, and I can't get Zoom to put my picture up.
Okay. Well, do you have
Well,
a do,
tell you
do
what
you have
happened. I tried to get my picture up, and on the screen came a full face of Al Green. So I turned that off.
did you by the way, did you see
I don't want to see that again.
yeah, did you see Mark Wayne Mullen go down and take his sign away from him or make him put it down
Yes.
in the State of the Union?
Yes.
That was Mark Wayne Mullen, a senator from Oklahoma. Good job, Mark. So, and I want to take time to mention the gold medal hockey team. If you've ever been involved with sports, and when it comes down to, there's no timing involved, right? It's just whoever scores wins, right?
Mhm.
There can't be anything more exciting than that in a sporting event, and watching that team climb over those boards and run across skate across the other side was just fantastic. So I congratulate the United States gold medal hockey team, and they did a great job. They got outshot 2-1, but their goalie was, I don't know if you guys watched it, but did you see he made that save behind him?
Yes.
I have never seen a goalie make a save behind him, ever. National Hockey League, college, or anybody. I mean, I think Trump asked him, Did you practice that?
Yeah.
So, that was great. So anyway, Zach, do you have comments about the Supreme Court, or shall we move on?
Well, the Supreme Court, in two things in particular, is they're agonizing over birthright citizenship. It's clear
Yeah.
that it only applies to the children born to slaves.
Yeah.
And if you go back to the original back and forth in Congress at the time it was passed, it was clear that it was post-Civil War dealing with the question of children born to slaves. It had nothing to do with illegal aliens. And I was taught that in the Border Patrol Academy.
Right.
They said it was not law. It was a government policy.
Right. Yeah.
And now we get down to tariffs. The thing that bothers me about tariffs and the way that Trump is using them is,
do you think the Supreme Court was right or wrong?
I think they danced around the issue.
Okay.
The way Trump is using tariffs is foreign diplomacy, which that is the exclusive purview of the executive. The Department of State, Marco Rubio, the whole 9 yards. And Trump is using that as leverage to make America great again, to leverage what's right for America. And I think that's what, my personal opinion, is what they're trying to stop, is him
Okay.
using it as leverage in
Yeah.
the diplomatic arena.
Gotcha.
I understand why they don't want, 800% tariff on gasoline vehicles. I understand that part of it. But I mean, when you look at the use rather than the theory, it seems to me that if he's using it the way he is using it, that it's lawful.
Yeah. So you think they were wrong?
I think they didn't. I think they didn't define it well enough.
Yeah.
Now, I have a hard time sugarcoating it.
I hear you.
I can help you with that.
So so I want to talk a little bit about the State of Union here and the State of the Union, and I hope you all watched it. Some things I want to point out that I really liked. I love giving the medals of honor to those two, to the Navy pilot and the Army helicopter pilot. Paul, how about that, huh? In front of a large audience, that was fantastic. Especially when he looked over at him and shook his head. A couple of times, he just shook his head and couldn't believe that they wouldn't stand up and support, protecting Americans and protecting illegals ahead of Americans. So I love that part of it.
One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
One of the Christianity in the church, which was, that was terrific. And he did talk about a healthcare fix. So those are my thoughts about it. What do you guys think? Just jump in.
Well, I think that his stand up. If you think the purpose of the government is to protect American citizens over illegal aliens, I think the picture of those Democrats sitting there on their hands is going to be the greatest political ad ever.
And it's going to start. It's going to start this week.
They won't even have to put words with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Just play that little clip, and then a shot of them sitting on their hands is going to say everything that needs to be said.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, good. Ken, what do you think?
I saw the whole thing, and I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, I did too.
And all of the items that I was very moved when the two guys got their medals of honor.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that Army guy. If you watch that Army guy, he was doing everything he could to hold still and stand there, because that was hard for him. When he was done, he could barely turn around and get out the door without help. So he must have really got hit pretty bad in the leg. So
when they finished, they immediately sat him into a wheelchair, I think, because he was only standing by the use of his arms, because he must have had some real serious damage done to his legs.
Oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, just as an aside, leg wounds are the greatest wounds received by helicopter pilots in combat, because they're sitting in an armored seat, and that's what happened to me. That's the part of your body that's sticking out of the armor plating, and that's where they mostly get hit. So,
Paul, what's it like? Paul, what is it like to have a bullet enter your body? What is that? What does that feel like?
Okay, I described it as being hit. I got shot in the right calf, and it felt like somebody hit me in the back of the calf with a baseball bat at a full swing. It was that kind of an impact. Kicked my foot off the pedals. The helicopter yawed to the left because I was off the right pedal, and I got my leg back on it. And my wound obviously was not nearly as serious as this guy's, but it does affect you. And
I'm sure.
quite frankly, it makes you. When I went to Vietnam, I thought I was going to live or I was going to die. That was just and I was resigned to either. But July 30th, 1968 taught me that there's a space between being alive and being dead, and that's called hurt. And anyway, but that's Ken. That's to answer your question. It's like getting hit with a baseball bat, and I can imagine 4 times what I got would have been 4 times as bad.
Yeah,
and he obviously had some bone damage, which I did not.
Yeah.
How difficult would it have been for him to continue to use his legs to save that copter and the people that were in it? That had to be almost superhuman.
Well, let me just say this. I've never flown a Chinook helicopter, which is what he was flying, which is a twin rotor helicopter.
Yeah, we'll put up a picture.
It's a different helicopter than what I flew, which is a Huey. In a single engine, single rotor helicopter, you're fighting torque the whole time. As the engine is turning the rotor blades one way, the counterforce, Newton's law, turns the helicopter the other way. And the tail rotor is what keeps it pointed in the right direction. You don't need pedals like that for a Chinook with a twin rotor system, because they counter rotate. And so you don't have that torque. In fact, the way you adjust the turning of the helicopter with the pedals is basically just changing the pitch in the main rotors. And by putting more torque in one than the other, it torques it around. But it doesn't torque it around like a helicopter does. When my leg got shot off the pedals, I lost that control. and the helicopter started to spin. I got back on it quickly enough to prevent an accident. But in his case, I don't know that the pedals were quite as important.
Oh,
The fact that he continued to fly the aircraft with that much pain had to be what was heroic.
but I thought the president mentioned that he got back onto the pedal somehow in order to turn it 180 degrees so that the gunners in the back could address the attacks that were coming from the.
Hey, I can't tell you what happened there, Ken, but it's theoretically possible that he turned it to the left if it was his right leg that was shot. You know,
Yeah.
he could have torqued it around with his good leg. I don't know.
Wow.
Superhuman and deserving of medal, no question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was great.
Adrenaline.
So good job. So Jeff, your opinion of the State of the Union speech?
I watched the whole thing too. I hadn't planned on it, but it was so good. I couldn't stop. It's like, what would I rather be doing? And there was some times in there that I was like, only Trump could get away with this, and that's calling the Democrats out. But I can't blame him for doing that because the contrast is so big and so different between patriots and those who love America and even fighting over the power. But we have such two different visions of where we want to go. Do you want men in women's locker rooms? Are you okay with the fraud? Are you okay with the illegal immigration? Are you okay with changing our values from day one? Are you okay with not rights from God, but government? And, all these things that need to be pointed out. And it's just hard to say that in a gentle way, especially with the nastiness going on there.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when the video panned over to Ilhan Omar and others, I do not know why those people are literally still in the Congress.
Yeah.
I mean,
They-
they are anti-American. They do
Oh,
not
yeah.
like this nation, and there really is no reason they should be serving.
Yeah. Talib, what's her name? Is that her name? The other one's Talib something.
Yeah,
I think she's
Rashid Tlaib and
Rashid
Johan.
Talib. Yeah, she's Indian and Ian Omar
Yeah.
is Somalian. So yeah,
Well,
I
they
agree
have
with you.
rules that they could be kicked out, and they,
Yeah, they need to do it. Yeah,
and if you cannot support the Constitution, which they obviously don't, or American values, then they should be kicked out.
yeah, agreed. So Zach, your thoughts about the State of the Union?
I loved it. Watched every minute.
Good.
I didn't see it. It was almost like the Democrats were committing political suicide.
Yeah, you're digging a hole, keep digging it, right?
Well,
Let
they
them dig.
they could not have behaved worse and still remain
Yeah,
in the venue.
yeah,
But Al Green proved that.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, last year he got thrown out. Yeah. So I have to tell you a little story about. So we all liked the speech, I'm sure, and that's good. I appreciate all you guys chiming in on that. I'll tell you a little story. I was watching the local news last night. Not last night. Night before last was the speech. Before the speech, okay, the 6 o'clock news, and they put up a picture. They talked about the State of the Union. They put up a picture with Trump in front of Paul Ryan and Mike Pence. And I looked real quick and I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "There was a State of the Union last year, and Vance and Johnson were sitting up there. Why wouldn't you use that picture? Why do you put up a picture of Mike Pence and Paul Ryan with Trump? So I wrote the station
Weird.
right away, and a guy wrote me back and said, "Where did you see that picture?" And I said, "I saw it on your local news broadcast 10 minutes ago." So he wrote back in a couple of minutes. He's a digital guy on the station, and he says, "Oh, I found it. Okay, so I guess he fixed it. I don't know if they re-reported or not." Then they got into yeah. I said, why? I went on the internet right away and found a picture of Trump standing in front of Mike Johnson and J.D. Vance in last year's State of the Union. Now, why would that have been so hard to put that up there? It was just stupid to me. It's just terribly lazy work by a news team.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So let's. We got a few minutes left here. I'm going to cut off at 4:15 because it gives us a little more time to get to our charity dinner. But I want to talk about. I hope you guys are up to speed on it. I'm sure you are. I have no doubt. The Convention of the States. And before the program started, I read Article 5 to the audience. So I know you guys are probably all familiar with it. I don't know if any of you work for the Convention of States or not. Patty and I were involved with it a little bit. To date, there have been 20 states that are on board with the Convention of States. You need 2/3, so you need 34, right? I think that's right, Jeff. You agree?
You need 2/3 to call a
To call,
convention.
yeah.
Correct.
So, and then you need, if you
3/4
come up with an amendment, you need 3/4 to approve that. So, and the one that's been talked about the most to me as an amendment would be a balanced budget amendment. That would be, and the secondly would be term limits, if you wanted a second one. But I always felt like the Convention of States, if they called one, they ought to go for a balanced budget amendment and force our Congress, Senate and House, to balance the budget, because it's pretty obvious that I don't know if any of us think they're ever going to get there. And with a $37 trillion debt, there can't be any bigger cloud hanging over the finances of the U.S. government. So give me your opinion, guys.
Don, let me comment quick because then I got to jump off. But
Oh, yeah, sure.
I spent about 8 years working for Compact for America.
Yeah.
I am for a convention of states, but I think the only way it's going to happen is if it's not an open convention of the states, it's more of the compact idea
Right.
where you have a preset plan. It's not an open convention.
Yeah.
Even with a Compact for America, which is really belt, suspenders, and bubble wrap around you to protect us not from going off the rails, you have people like Andy Biggs, who I love a lot, and other conservatives who are of the Phyllis Schlafly group, who I love her too, but they were just against any convention, Article 5. But, I've always been for it. Reagan's for it. Scalia was for it. Everybody that I think is thinking rationally is for it.
Eisenhower was for it.
Sure.
I sent you guys one of his speeches that he talked about it, which is pretty interesting.
Right. So I think the states need to flex their muscle. It's the only way it's going to happen is through the states. So the federal government has cover because they're not going to be able to cut the budget, and they need to be forced by the people of the states to do it. And so anyway, that's my vote.
Okay, I bring that up because our Governor DeSantis was in Idaho, selling the Convention of the States, and he was also he also went to the Kentucky legislature to sell it. So
that's great.
And I haven't given the whole thing any thought for years, really, honestly. But that kind of came up in my mind again about all we had done too, working with the Compact for America. So Paul, what do you think?
Well,
I know you have some concerns about a runaway convention. You told me so.
Yeah, that's my concern. But what Jeff is saying is that they may be able to control that. But I've also read when I was studying the Convention of States, Article 5, about some rules or legislation that Congress has passed that's going to give them some leverage over what the Convention of States comes up with. That they can override, overrule, or something like that. I'd have to go back and study it again. That's just a vague memory that I have from when I was doing this pretty hard. It just seems to me like I have a bumper sticker that I got somewhere. I've got it stuck on my rolling garbage can that just says "Constitution, don't rewrite it, reread it." Because I don't know that it needs to be changed. If you've got a Congress that's not going to stay in fiscally sound, then is making it, then yes, you need a law to do that, to prevent that. But then we've got laws against things that Congress has been doing since 1842, So I'm afraid, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my concern.
But you know, it really is broken at the federal level. And there are states that have balanced budget amendments in their states, and I think Arizona is one of them, right, Ken? Yeah.
Yes,
So you
Well,
can do it. You can do it in the state. Why
but
not do it
even with
in the
that,
federal government?
oh my goodness.
A news bulletin?
No, I'm remember Kayla Mueller, the American girl that was killed by the Taliban?
Yeah.
Her parents are calling me. I'll text them that I'll call them right back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that was one of
S- s-
I were you done there, Paul?
Well, I was just going to say, would it take a constitutional amendment? Can't they pass a law? Can't Congress pass a law that says the budget must be balanced?
No, they won't do that though, I don't think.
But that's what and I'll just weigh in. We have a balanced budget amendment in Arizona, but there are times when they blow by it by wording things so that you can get around however the balanced budget amendment was worded.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an amendment, or there's a thing in the Arizona Constitution that says that the state debt shall be no more than $350,000. And yet the debt of the state of Arizona is probably in the neighborhood of $9 billion, because they worded the phrase that put the limit at $350,000 of how you borrowed money in 1912, which was by general obligation bonds. So general obligation bonds, which is what binds the state government to pay those from future revenues. Yeah. When they got to $350,000 of general obligation bonds, they just started borrowing money in different ways.
Yeah.
And because every one of those specific ways wasn't specifically prohibited in the Arizona Constitution. And so we have a balanced budget amendment in Arizona, but I watched Janet Napolitano after I left as president of the Senate, and she had more influence than she should have in the subsequent legislatures because of a handful of Republicans that voted with her to do some crazy things like sell the state capitol and borrow money against the next 10 years of revenue from the lottery, and sell school buildings that were paid off and free and clear, and use all kinds of other borrowing techniques that were not specifically prohibited in the Arizona Constitution. We blew by and violated the balanced budget amendment that's in the Arizona Constitution many times. Now, fortunately, we didn't do it during the 4 years that I was president of the Senate, but as soon as I was gone, there were others that did.
Yeah.
And they let her blow right by it.
Yeah, I guess
And so-
yeah, even when you have it, it's not 100% guarantee that the people that you put in the office are going to abide by it, right?
The favorite 4 words of people who write laws are notwithstanding any other law.
There you go.
You know, Warren Buffett came up with a surefire program. He said to prevent deficit spending, anytime the deficit is more than 3% of the budget, the Congress doesn't get paid.
But
Yeah. Or you can cut their wages by 3%.
I'm concerned that an Article 5 convention will get out of control, will go into things that has no business going into, even if you try to control it to 1 or 2 things.
Yeah.
And I think the evidence of that was in the State of the Union speech the other day, when 49% of the elected representatives of the 50 states sit on their hands when the president asks them from the podium, do you support the statement that the fundamental role of the government should be to protect American citizens before it protects illegal aliens? And they sat there. Yeah. That to me proves more than anything else that if you convened a convention of states and 49% of the people that are going to be there are going to be of that ilk, I have no confidence that they're going to improve what we have.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. So Zach, you
I
want to say
trust
anything
the
about?
founding father. I trust the founding fathers more than I trust the people who run our government today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Zach, you want to comment on the Convention of the States?
Ken phrased it perfectly.
Okay. Good job, Ken. You gotta vote. I vote. I like that.
He withheld the sugar.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Well, yeah, and see that going back to that I mean that's such a good point. And going back to I mean I am in favor of a convention of states and I'm in favor of balanced budget amendment, but would it happen the way it's supposed to happen? Well, Paul and Ken make a good point that it may
If
not.
you could bring back the George Washingtons and the
Yeah.
Thomas Jeffersons
Yeah.
and
The John
the people
Adams
that wrote
yeah.
the thing in the first place and told
Yeah.
them redo it again with a balanced budget amendment, I'd vote for it right now.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
But I don't want that group that I saw sitting on their hands
Yeah.
participating in any way.
And what that showed me too was that, see, that's watching that happen. To me, it's a good lesson on the Supreme Court was wrong because we're in extraordinary times.
Mm-hmm.
We're at a time when you have an opposition. It's like President Trump pointed at him and said, "Those people are crazy," and he said it twice, and they are crazy. I mean, the stuff. Jeff covered all the crazy stuff, the policies that they're pushing now, but they are crazy. And can we fundamentally execute government responsibility with crazy people sitting on the other side of the aisle, 49%? How do you compromise? I guess that's another question. How do you compromise with that bunch, right? How do you even make any sense of what they're doing? So my last word is John Thune, go to work, get the SAVE Act passed.
Yeah.
He's got to come through on that.
I was going to comment on what Jeff said about the Supreme Court's decision about the fact that what the president did was not an emergency because it's been going on for so long.
Yeah.
But my feeling is if the house is on fire and it's been burning and it's been burning and it's been burning, and then the firemen get there, that's an emergency. Just because the president recognized the horror of what our previous administrations have done and was the first one to actually pick up the fire hose and point it at the house, it's still an emergency.
Yeah.
Just because it's been going on doesn't mean it's new. It's an old emergency that's now being addressed.
Yeah, so, and that's a very good point. I mean, exactly. And as far as birthright citizenship and what Zach was talking about, if they go rely, well, it's been the policy of the government for so long, we can't change it now. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
You have to interpret the Constitution of what it's saying, and the 14th Amendment is pretty clear, like he said. So, okay, guys, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you all very much for joining. Thank you, Zach. Sorry you didn't have any video, but we're good. You're a good-looking guy, so we know what you look like. We know where you are. So, and Ken, thank you, sir. I'm glad your trip turned out 100% good. And Paul, thank you. I don't know how your Jeep's running. Is your Jeep running okay now?
Yeah, they replaced the part, but now we're kind of like, remember when Winston Churchill supposedly asked Lady Astor, "Would you go to bed with me for 100,000 pounds?" And she said yes. And he said, "Here's 10 pounds. Let's go." And she said, "What kind of girl do you think I am?" She said, "We've established that. We're just trying to haggle about the price now." So the dealer, I have a lifetime contract, maintenance contract with Mopar, and the dealer's telling me it's not any good because he had to put a part in that wasn't a Mopar part.
Right.
And my contract doesn't read anything about Mopar parts, but the Jeep's working now. That's the good thing.
Well, that's good. You haven't had to pull off the road in.
No, and I'm in a hassle now with Mopar, so we'll see.
Oh, okay. All right. Good luck with that. And
thanks.
And Zach, thank you again. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Paul. Good to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Don.
Have a blessed week. Okay. Yeah. God bless America, and we'll see you all later. Thank you.
Now, wait a minute, Jack. This is a friendly celebration.
Fiddly-dee! I don't much like the way you celebrate.